Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. So, I'm really excited to be joined here by another returning guest for today's episode, Alex Aanderud, who is a leader in adaptive leadership, personal development, human behavior, and consciousness as well. So, Alex is the founder of VitalSpark AI, which is a really interesting company that actually combines AI technology, which is something that's very, prevalent in business and real estate today, but also when it comes to personal development and leadership as well. And I've been, working with Alex a lot on, some of the things that he's bringing out with this company. It's really interesting and it's really intuitive as well if you are looking to improve your leadership skill sets and also your skill sets just as an entrepreneur and communicating with other people as well. So, Alex, man, welcome back to the show. I'm so glad to have you back here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for this.
Yeah, it's always exciting to have you on. It's always exciting to just talk to you in general because I think you've offered, me a ton of value personally. I've been a part of many of your classes and trainings, and every single time that I'm a part of something, I learn something new, and it's something that just makes sense and just clicks with me. So hopefully this is going to be the same for all of our listeners here today. But if you guys don't know who Alex is, make sure to listen to our first podcast that I've done. I'll leave that in the link and the description down below. But Alex, tell us a little bit about VitalSpark AI and where did this idea come from of combining AI and kind of what you're doing, which is less so on the tech side, more so on the internal self-reflection, intuition side of things.
So, when I was a kid, I had a lot of trauma, physically, sexually abused, dealt with weight issues, medical issues, 40 to 50 seizures a day. Like, I went through a lot as a child. And I remember my vice principal in middle school telling my parents I'd never graduate. Like, the best they could hope for is I get a job at McDonald's someday. And really, the challenge was nobody understood who I was. Nobody understood. And as a kid, I didn't know who I was, and I didn't have anybody to teach me. So I just went through life with a chip on my shoulder. And over the years, I became an engineer, worked for Boeing, experimental flight test, trainer of advanced integrative psychology. I worked with suicide depression. I realized I wasn't alone, that there's a lot of people who don't feel seen, safe, who don't feel accepted by the community. How Vital Spark came to be was through all my different works, I got really good at personality assessments through communication, through leadership, and then as well as systems and processes. And the challenge was is that I was helping a lot of people who were struggling with deep depression, anxiety, PTSD, that kind of stuff. But I was going broke doing it because there were too many people who needed help that couldn't afford it. And Vital Spark really was about being able to create an assessment that truly helped you understand who you were at a deep level. But then on top of that, providing 24/7 access at an affordable rate to a coach, to a consultant, to somebody who can help you walk through and go, what the hell's going on with me and why? Or what's going on with my partner, what's going on with my client. Um, One of the best stories I have of that is like I was getting my haircut. I told my hairdresser about it, and she came back the next week, and or next time I got my haircut, I don't get a cut every week, but next time I was getting my haircut, I was in there, and she had signed up for the service, and it was incredible. And she said, "I've been paying $150 a month, once a month, to be able to see a therapist because it was all I could afford. I'd save up to get in to see a counselor. And now I've got 24/7 access for less money. And it's the coolest thing. She was telling me all the different ways she's using it. But what Vital Spark has really done is it's made change accessible for everybody. It's made self development, self reflection, and self growth available without having to pay two, three, $4,000 a month to a coach. And I love that. And that's really how this came to be and why I'm so passionate about it.
Yeah, so that's really, it's an interesting way of utilizing AI in, your day-to-day life, right? I think a lot of people have used AI for many different things. The more popular ones out there are copywriting, kind of just in the space that we're in and real estate and other business owners as well, but also in, analyzing data and just
Yep.
coming up with ideas. But kind of the way that you've positioned Vital Spark is that, it's somebody that's, or it's a tool that's there for you to be able to explain your problems to, and then it'll be able to feedback to you either a solution or at least try to help you understand better based on your own personality. Is that something you would say is kind of the idea behind this?
Well, I would augment that. Yes, that was the idea of where it started. But as you talk about copywriting, The difference is like if you go to ChatGPT or you go someplace and you ask it for ideas, it'll give you some really good ideas and you can tailor it. But if you go to the VitalSpark consultant, you go to the VitalSpark coach, it knows your personality. So, like for instance, if I take your personality and you just say, "Hey, write me a good article," it knows who you are, it knows your background, like, and it'll write you an article. It's like, "Look, this is perfect. This is me," because it knows what inspires you, what motivates you, what drives you, what is your voice, without having to program your voice in there. It actually knows what drives you. So the things that it writes are based upon your personality and through your intrinsic drives, your fears and your desires.
Right, and I've actually tested a tool like that, right, through VitalSpark as well, and it works, works like not like magic, right? I don't want to, but it really does. It works kind of like magic, right? Where it kind of just knows what how I would write or how I would sound it or speak as well if I'm trying to put out a transcript or anything like that. So I think it's interesting for other leaders in the space, right? Other real estate, maybe they're a team leader or a brokerage owner in the real estate space to really understand what is the importance of having a tool like this or just being able to understand even if they're not using this specific tool, you know, why is it so important for leaders to be able to lead their team and the people that they have to, work with in different ways, right? Understanding that people are actually motivated by different things. I think that's a big part of what I learned from you, and I'd love for you to be able to share that with people.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, regardless of which tool or technique or methodology you use, VitalSpark's not the only option for you to be able to understand your people, but you need to understand your people. Leaders develop followers because they feel seen, safe, accepted, and protected. If you can help your people feel seen, safe, accepted, and protected, they're empowered to take the next step. And the challenge is that we often are really good at doing that for people who we lead naturally. But there's only a small portion of people who would naturally be your followers. But when you're building a team, they're not all the same type of personality. And so what happens is that you then expect your people to adapt to your leadership, but that's like a parent expecting a child to change so that way they don't have to change the parenting. That's not the role of the leader. That's not the role of the parent. The role of the leader is to create a space for authenticity of the individual, the people that are following them. In that authenticity, there was a study done by a company called Intermetrics, and it's called the Genius Study, and it found that the top performers all had two things: self-awareness and authenticity. They had created an environment where they could be themselves. And as a leader, that's your responsibility. That's your opportunity to increase the production, to increase the retention of your team, of your company. I've been able to take real estate teams and drop it from 65% attrition down to 5% just by teaching the leaders how to adapt their communication to the people in their organization and make sure they're not bringing on the people that are going to they're going to piss them off. Like making sure we don't bring those people in. And it's like, how do you find that balance? It's by understanding yourself and your people at such a deep level.
Right, and you mentioned that, right? You were able to bring that attrition. I mean, that's a huge number, right? Because we all know in real estate, attrition is, just through the roof, right? Just it's just a kind of within the industry kind of thing, right?
I was
Even
at a conference. There was one of the top groups of the top performers of the brokerage. So, like, there's EXP, there's Real, there's all these different brokerages, but the group of the top. And I ran profiles for all of the top performers and found out that they all had a very similar profile. Now, there's two questions that a leader can ask in this moment. One of it is, how do I find more of those people? And that's what most of the people in the group asked. And I went, that's the wrong freaking question. The question is, why is this environment set up so that only 1% or 8% of the population of your group are able to be top performers? What do we need to change so that the top performers aren't one personality type, but are instead all the personality types are able to achieve that success? How do we lead better? And I think that's where most people, you have to make a decision. Do you want to have a niche team that only has the top performers that you lead naturally? Or do you want a top performing team that has a diverse personality because you as a leader have become a better leader?
that's a great question to ask, right? Because I think a lot of people struggle with that. I think, as somebody who is, who knows themselves or maybe don't know themselves, that they more so gravitate towards they want to build a niche team. They want to build a team of people that are similar to them because it's familiar and they know how to lead and it's, more or less comfortable, right? Maybe it's not, comfortable in the traditional sense, but it's comfortable as far as they're familiar with it. So is
Right. And
that,
there's nothing wrong with it. Like, and for me, I look at it, I go, okay, but what team are you wanting to have? Because if you're somebody who wants to grow a team of 10 to 20 to 30 people, You can do that, but then you need to allow the people who aren't part of that group to not be part of your team. You need to weed them out. You need to screen them. You need to make sure that they don't come in because they're wasting your time, energy, and motivation. They're not going to be successful with you as a leader. They're going to become discouraged and it's going to hurt the culture of your organization because you have people coming and going. So then just put up barriers and go, these are the only people that we allow into the group because these are the people we know play well with the group. Or if you want a team of 30, 40, 50, 100, 200, 500 people, and you want to grow a massive organization that has thousands of people, you're not going to do that as a niche piece. So that means you need to A, be a better and more developed leader, and B, bring people on who can lead those groups. So you don't necessarily need to lead all of this type that you don't like to work with. But what you can do is you can bring a leader on who likes to work with that, then you just have to work with that one leader, and then they manage all of these people.
Yeah, and that's one of the cool things, right? About leadership, especially kind of growing a team, right? Is that you can bring on people that are not necessarily they complement your strengths and weaknesses, right? So it's somebody who
Right.
is who's good at the things you're not good at, and the things that you're good at, they might be a little bit lacking as well, and that's how you really create a great partnership. So kind of going into that that discussion, right, about becoming a better leader. I know we talked a little bit about that in our first podcast, but I really want to dig a little bit deeper into this, right? Because for a lot of people, they feel like if they're leading somebody who is different than them, they might feel inauthentic to themselves, and they might feel like they're pretending to be somebody else. Do you have any tips or
I
suggestions on that?
love that conversation because I have that conversation all the time because so many people are like, yeah, but I shouldn't need to adapt. Well, then don't be a leader. Like, let me just be blunt. If you don't want to adapt, then don't be a leader. It's that simple. Just be you and don't worry about it. Here's the thing. I am a leader and leaders adapt. So I'm not being inauthentic by adapting. I'm still coming through with my authentic personality. I'm just not allowing my baggage to dictate how I show up because most of our behavioral tendencies are driven by our emotional trauma from childhood. Most of the way that we interact with people, both with confidence and with lack of confidence, or our communication style, the way that we handle it, happens because of all of the life experiences that we've been through. But that doesn't define who you are. It's just how you're displaying who you are, and you're using a form of communication to do that. So for me, I'm an effective leader, and effective leaders adapt their communication. So when I'm adapting, I'm being authentic to who I am. That's how that works for me. Is I'm being authentic because as a leader, I adapt, and that's how I identify it. So it's what do you define as you? If you're wrapped up that you're a high driver who yells at people and that's just who you are, then totally own that. Be you. But for me, that's ineffective. And a high D driver, so I'm using disc as an example, like a high D driver, I'm going to get results. I'm going to get results. I'm going to move. I'm like, okay, so you're going to sit here and push the people who are going to dig their heels in when you could take 5 minutes, adapt your communication instead of wasting 4, 5, 6 hours of having the same conversation again and again and again. Which one's more effective? So if you really want to be effective, or do you want to get wrapped up in how you're communicating? That's where I have that differentiation. Who I am isn't how I show up. How I show up is a display of who I am and how can I bring my authentic self through that instead of that being my authentic self. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely does, because I think for people out there who are listening, that have that issue, that's something they struggle with because they're uncertain about whether or not, it's who they are, right? They're uncertain about, they should show up a certain way, or they're being inauthentic to who they are, and they're getting maybe mixed messages in their mind as far as
Yeah.
doing what, they feel like is going to be the best, that provides the best result, not just for their team, but also for themselves and their own lifestyle as well.
Well, I've got a really good example of this. I had a woman who was in real estate, bouncing team to team to team and wasn't being successful. She was not very social and she didn't like people. And she was a real estate agent. And everyone went, you're not going to be successful. You need to learn to communicate. You need to learn to talk to people. And this is a people business. If you don't like people, you're in the wrong business. And they kept giving her this message. She goes, but I want to be in real estate. Why? Because I'll make money, because I want the money and I like the money. It's easy work and I can do it. Real estate's not easy work, just as a point. But for her, it's easy work. It's just not a big deal. And I said, okay, so how about this? How about we teach you to ask questions instead of talk? And then what I want you to do is when you walk in for the listing appointment or you walk into the buyer broker conversation, what I want you to say is, the number one thing I care about is getting your referral. So I'm going to take better care of you than all the other people who are lying to you and telling you it's about you, because it's not. I'm at least going to be honest with you, and I'll be honest with you through this process. All I care about is the check, and I'll get more checks if I get referrals from you.
Yep, and
She
that's the right.
became a top salesperson. She was doing great. Why? because she was communicating her authentic self. And there were people who were offended, but most people weren't. They're just like, oh, well, that's an interesting approach. Cool. I'm in. Let's do it.
Yeah, I think, that conversations like that is going to become so much more important now, especially with the new changes with the AAR settlement that just
Oh,
came upon the
yes.
industry. Because now it's so much more about, you can't pretend to be somebody you're not anymore if you're asking for value up front, or you're asking for compensation, or at least an agreement of compensation up front. Wouldn't you agree with that as well? I think it's so much more important now.
So much. And a lot of people who are using the VitalSpark coach, what they've been doing is they've been asking, like, what makes me unique? And it'll say, based on your personality, here are some of the traits that you bring that differentiate yourself as a buyer's agent. Here's some of the things. And so they've been using this before they go into the conversation. And if they know anything about their prospect, they'll go, this is what I know about my prospect. This is all the information that I have. This is my personality. How should I adapt? And what should be the key traits about me that I think that they'd appreciate? And it'll give them that. And so if you don't have something like the VitalSpark, an easy way to do that is to think about people as emitters, like a signal emitter. Like if you have like a wave kind of, I don't know if this is a visual podcast or not, but it's like it's a wave, it's a podcast. So if you hit two tuning forks and you put them in the water, they create ripples. And then there's an interference pattern between the two where those ripples coincide. That's the relationship. So if you are blue and they are yellow, what color do you get?
Green.
Green. Perfect. So if you're blue and they're yellow and you want to see orange, you have to become red because then yellow and red make orange. But if you're blue and you want to see purple, you can't get there from here. So all you can do is you can get rooted in your blue and lead and motivate and guide the yellow to become purple so that together you guys or become red so that way you guys together can see the purple. So then it becomes a matter of leadership and influence to be able to get the color that you're looking for. There isn't a right or wrong. None of the colors are good or bad. They're just spectrums, but it's that interference pattern and who's responsible for change. And when the other person needs to adapt, you can't force that. All you can do is lead or influence. And so that's where that adaptive leadership comes into play is understanding who are you, who do you think they are, and how do you make that interference pattern so that it resonates together?
Yeah. So that is, that's something that's so interesting, right? That you just mentioned there is, it's not so much about getting somebody to change or changing yourself. It's what is the result that you're looking to get out of this interference pattern, out of this communication, this relationship, and then figuring out what it is that needs to happen, right? And then also figuring out, I would say, is it worth it, right? Because for a lot of people, it's not worth changing. It's not worth
Yes.
adapting. Is that correct?
And I want to be very careful in the languaging because I'm sure I said it, but it's adapt, not change. Adapt can be a temporary shift. And what you're doing is you're getting more attached to the outcome that you're trying to create than the way that you're presenting yourself.
Yeah. So that's
And
that. Yeah. So I kind of wanted to dig deeper into that specific piece, right? Of being more attached to the outcome than necessarily changing who you are, because I went through a training with you, and then this specific example stuck so deeply with me that I've used it to try to explain this exact situation to other people, and I would love for you to be able to share it. And that is the grocery store example of the monkey and the bananas, and
oh,
communicating that specific example, because it makes so much sense. It's so easy to understand, and it's so interesting for people. So now that we're on this subject, I would love for you to be able to share that with our audience here.
oh, I'd love to. So, just before I begin, this is not a real example. My ex wife and I did not have this conversation. I have told her I use this as an example, and she's totally cool with it because this is a real conversation we could have had, but it does make the point. So, I have to preface it with this now just to make sure because karma wasn't nice to me. And I'll explain that after the story. But one day, my ex-wife, I was married at the time, so my wife came home and she had a bunch of bananas. And I went, awesome, you got bananas. She says, no, I picked up some monkeys from the store. I went, what do you mean monkeys? And she pulled out the bananas. I'm like, bananas? She says, yeah, monkeys. So then I'm walking around the house and she says, hey, would you mind handing me a monkey? I'm like, a monkey? And she points over at the bananas. She says, yeah, a monkey. And she points. I'm like, oh, okay, here you go. Here's your monkey. Hell, it's a banana. And I'm like, hey, could you hand me a banana? She says, yeah, monkeys. You want a monkey? I'm like, yeah, I'd love a monkey. She said, what am I now? I'm starting to slip up. I'm like, what the hell? So then I'm going to the grocery store. We're out of bananas. I say, hey, do you need anything? She says, can you pick up some monkeys? I go, sure. What the hell do you mean pick up monkeys? She says, the fruit. Could you pick up some monkeys? We're out of monkeys. I'm like, oh my God. They're freaking bananas. Come on, child. I mean, come on. Driving me nuts. So then the next day, a week later, 2 weeks later, she's at the grocery store. We're out of bananas. She's at the store and I want bananas. So now do I tell her, pick up bananas and see what the hell she brings home? Or do I say monkeys because that's now become the word that she uses? I'm right. They are called bananas. They're not monkeys. She's wrong. But if I want bananas to come home, it probably makes more sense for me to say monkeys at that point. And it goes, yeah, but I'm right. I don't care. I want bananas. But this example, it's like, what is it that you're looking for? Like, it doesn't matter if you're right. It doesn't matter if it's the way it's supposed to be, or if it's the right word or the wrong word, or if the person is using this word, adapt your communication, because then you understand what they're communicating. You understand what they mean. But then you're like, yeah, but it's the wrong word. So you try and force the right word as opposed to allowing the communication to be the dynamic between the two of you. There is an understanding and an activation of the internal network because you're using a word and you both know what that means.
Yeah, and so that's such a great example because it's somebody who is attached to the outcome of the situation, right? And then that's when it kind of goes back to the flip side of that, or we were talking about earlier. Some people just might they're so stuck on that you have to use the right word, that these are called bananas and not monkeys, that they're not willing to make that change. They're willing to sacrifice, maybe just not getting the bananas just so that they can be right. And that's, would you say that's okay as well? It's just, you just have to understand that's the situation, or that's the result that you're going to get, is you're not going to get what you want.
As a leader, I would say you totally get to choose. As somebody who's following me, I would say no. You don't get to make that choice. Yeah, like ultimately, you don't know what's causing them to go that direction. You can help them see it the right way and give them the right word and help them navigate it. But if anything, I'd become curious, why are you calling them monkeys? Why aren't you calling them bananas? We both know they're bananas. Why are you calling them monkeys? It's like that word triggers me. I remember when I was a kid, my parents used to always say that and they'd throw them at me. And so the fruit, I love the flavor, but the word itself triggers me. Like, you don't know why they're using the wrong word. You don't know what the story is or the background. Maybe by forcing it, you're doing something even more damaging. So I'd say, yeah, ultimately it's the wrong word. And if that's the stance you want to take and the sword you want to die on, go for it. But if I really care about my outcome, then I'm going to be willing to go, you know what, the word, I'll adjust. But if that word is really that important to me, I'm not going to say you're wrong. Here's why. I'm going to say, help me understand, because this is the word. Why are you using this word instead? Help me understand. Becoming curious is what a leader should do, not forcing their opinion or their way on other people.
Right. And for some people, I think, they don't necessarily care about the outcome, right? They care more about being right than the outcome.
Right. That's true. And for them, I go, cool. Well, then let me help you figure out how to be right. Because here's the thing: if you fight them, they're going to be resistant. If you push somebody, they'll heels in. I do this exercise all the time where I have someone stand up and they face me and I push on their shoulder and they automatically push back. And I don't say a word. I walk over, I put my arm around them and I take a step and they take a step with me. And it's a very great physical representation of what we do. The minute someone pushes, your instinct is to push back. But if they're by your side and take a step, you step with them. And I think part of the challenge is that if you want to be right and you really want to establish that, then how do you get the other person to buy into your opinion? You have to help them feel seen, safe, accepted, and protected. There's something called the amygdala, which shuts off access to the neocortex and activates a fight or flight response. And what happens is currently we live in a place where we're almost always at least somewhat triggered, which means full access to logic, reason, understanding isn't there the moment we start to feel a threat. But today, a threat is you're not liking me, you're challenging me. That becomes our life or death threats. And so now all of a sudden, we don't have access to logic and reason. And then we try and use that to convince another person, and it frustrates us. We need to first appeal to their emotions, help them feel safe, and help them feel seen and that they're okay with us before they're able to hear any of the logic or reason to be able to create those shifts.
Yeah. So making sure that you understand, and I think this is where AI comes into play, right? And I'd love to kind of get your take on how AI is helping, leaders or just individuals who want to be more compassionate, who want to understand better, who want to help the people around them feel safer and seen and protected, but they just don't understand, they don't understand the spectrums of behavior outside of themselves. So they
Right.
have a hard time trusting their instincts as far as how they should be adapting their leadership styles to the people that are around them.
So from a leadership perspective, you can ask AI a bunch of questions like, hey, help me understand this, help me understand that. The Vital Spark specifically, and I got to push this piece because it has taken a 500-page algorithm of how I see people and understand and integrated it in. It looks at developmental psychology. And so what I've done with a lot of teams or organizations is I'll run profiles for everybody in the team. And the leader can say, hey, I'm meeting with Kobe. It says, oh, if you're meeting with Kobe, here's who you are. Here's who Kobe is. This is how you need to adapt in order to give him feedback so that he can hear it. If he's feeling depressed or unmotivated, here are some of the things you can say to get him back engaged. And so it tailors its approach to the individual. And then I have agents who are using it because they've got a client and it says, hey, I'm working with a client who is, insert a description. They're overly dominant. They tend to argue with everything that I do. And I'm trying to get them to sign this paper and I can't seem to get them to agree and they won't focus and it's driving me crazy. And I'll say, oh, you tend to focus on systems and structures. That tends to be your priority. But for these people, they're looking for connection. Before you can get them to sign a paper, you need to open up the social connection. Try having 5 to 7 minute conversation about their children and how they're doing. And then from that, leading into how having these documents signed is going to impact them and their family. And that will lead them to feel more connected to the process. You have to make it about the people. Otherwise, they won't do it. It's like, oh my God, brain blow, because those are the kind of things. It's like if you understand people and how to adapt, it goes, this is the type of person. It goes, oh, if that's who it is, here's how you can try adapting, and then you'll get more feedback, and you can use that AI to augment back and forth to have those conversations. One of you've done this, take text messages and you copy them and you paste it in, and it's like, okay, now how should I respond? And it looks at the dynamic between the people, but it also knows your personality and it can kind of assess what theirs is and go, try saying this, put it in this way instead, and it'll help give that feedback to adjust the communication.
Yeah, so that's it's very helpful to have a tool like that on hand 24/7 is what I would
Yeah,
say, because you can't access like your even if you're like a paid coach, right? It's really difficult to access somebody 24/7, right? Even if they promise you that, it's still probably out of the realm
right.
of possibility.
Well, and I was working. I was in the car with somebody, and they're one of the top people in one of the brokerages, and they were struggling. They got a message from somebody who said, "I'm just not feeling supported." She's like, "Well, I've done this, and I've done this, and I've done this," and like the person was producing, and they were going to leave. They were looking at leaving the brokerage and going over to a different brokerage, and the person they're like going back and forth, and I went, "You're not hearing what she's saying. What do you mean?" Well, she's saying she's going to leave if I don't give her more money. I said, no, she wants to know she matters to you. All you have to say is that you appreciate this, this, and this. And I told her what to say. I said, I really appreciate the way that you do this, this, and this. And I feel like we could do this together if you're willing to stay. And I want you to stay. And all she was looking for, the agent was looking, I want you to stay. She wanted to feel like it was important for this person. She texted it and person changed their language, came back on, and now they're stuck and they're loyal. And it was all because of that one adjustment. But I just happened to be in the car at the time. But like you said, you don't always have access. And so having that AI 24/7, being able to type it in and ask the question, so important, so valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really interesting because a lot of people don't know, might not know your background, but it absolutely makes sense that you ended up building this AI and one of the front edge of this because you used to be an engineer,
Yes.
right? So
I,
you
I
have a
used
good
to be
understanding.
Yeah, I used to work for Boeing doing an experimental flight test. So being able for the 787 for the P-8 Poseidon, which is a 737 modified to hunt submarines for the Navy, I was really integral in a lot of building this stuff. It was also the communication side. So it's fun because my life, everyone goes, how do you go from engineering to psychology to leadership to technology? I don't understand. It's all about patterns. Everything that I've done is about pattern recognition. And because the AI is able to keep up, I was able to show it all 150 different spectrums and how they interact, but it could understand it. And so that's why the app is so is because it understands the patterns the way that most people aren't able to comprehend it.
Right. And this is like, probably more speculation question than anything else, but do you see AI, or at least what you guys are doing with VitalSpark, getting to a point where there's some type of tool where it'll be able to recognize the AI, that is, will be able to recognize somebody's, at least in the basic level, behavioral patterns and maybe some of their intrinsic motivators just based on interacting with them,
Yeah.
through interacting with the AI, if that makes sense. They don't have to necessarily take a personality assessment, but just interacting, maybe a couple conversations with the AI, it'll actually start recognizing that on its end.
It's honestly already there. It's not that far off. The VitalSpark system can pick that up through conversation. Through if you look at send it like, okay, here's the messages. What do you think their motivation is? It'll give it based on the motivators because you can hear it in the language patterns. Because if you can identify key traits and key words, it'll be able to pick it up. Same kind of thing. I teach cold reading for the DISC assessment, and it's only a matter of two or three key indicators that tell me what someone's DISC profile is. And I can do it in under 30 seconds, a minute and a half with somebody. And being able to do that is all because of patterns, and the system can do that too. And you lose a lot when you don't get voice and body language, when all you have are the words, but you can still pick it up a lot. The biggest challenge is some of the ones that are out there that do it, they base it on social media posts. But I don't know about you, but I use AI to help me with social media, or I use a VA to help me with social media. And so if someone's using my social media content to guess what my personality is, it'll be okay, but it's not going to be me. It's not going to be my depth of personality.
So they're looking at social media posts, just the text, right? They're not like, because you can post videos on social media as well. And I'm sure if you post a video of yourself, 30 seconds even, if there's enough of that, it kind of gets a better sense. But you're saying it's only the text, not necessarily the video.
It's only the text. The video can, and it's getting better so that it can pick up video stuff. It's not quite there, but I do believe the technology is there. It's just a matter of the right application, and it's finding the right people to put it in place. Because finding somebody who can both integrate technology and personality, human design, understanding psychology, as well as the technical aspect, it's hard to marry those two. It's a very challenging process, and so, but I'm sure that technology is moving that direction.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I wanted to, kind of wrap up this podcast with is, where do you think Vital Spark as a company is going to be going in the future as far as developing technology, or at least keeping up with the advancement of technology, especially in the AI space, and helping people become better leaders, helping people understand others better, but also give them the right tools so that they're able to adapt their communication, their leadership styles more effectively, and not have to try to guess as much, and maybe trial and error as much.
I see it in a couple of different capacities. One is voice recordings, being able to be on the phone with you or in a Zoom call with you, just like the AI like the AI Zoom things right now. And then having a separate screen over here where it's giving you real life feedback as to who they are, what their personality type is, and how do you adapt your communication. What are they picking up? What are the fears? What are the oh, look right here, they just had this apprehension. So something that can scan and give you that real life feedback. And then also creating more of a conversational one where you can have the conversation, you can talk back and forth with it. Because already I've got this set up for children, for kids who are getting ready to go off to high school or off to college to figure out what kind of career they should do. I have it for relationships, for being able to understand relationship dynamics. So two people being able to put both their profiles in and go, help me understand my partner. Why did she say this? Why did he say that? And then I've got it for the business, for the teams. But I feel like we're moving to a place where you'll be able to pick up a phone and say, hey, I've got this question, I've got this going on, and have a conversation as though you were calling me or you were calling somebody like me.
Yeah, so that first thing that you mentioned, where it's going to be able to basically be there on with you on phone calls and Zoom calls, and it gives you on a separate screen all the tips and tricks. I want that. I don't know about everybody else out there, but I want that. So whenever you have that ready, Alex, make sure to let us know so that we can get that integrated for sure.
I've got to get some funding for that. And I'm sure once I get a couple of investors, that would be, I already have the technology. I know how to utilize the technology exists, but I need to build it. And I'm not there yet. So,
Wow. So I think that's interesting, right? That you understand that technology exists already and just how it works, because I think people struggle with, speaking with AI, understanding what AI's capabilities are, but I think, you haven't been having had that background in engineering, knows that it's probably a little bit more advanced than we think it is. Would you say that's the case?
It's a lot more advanced than we think it is. I'd say it's a lot more advanced than we think it is. And the behind the scenes of what's possible and what's happening, what's already happening that you're not aware of with your social media, and how that data, live data, is being used, how your conversations that you're having around your devices is being used through AI to augment its marketing strategy for what shows up in your feed. It's already there. It's already there. It's just the application to make it more user. It's just like AI existed for a long time before it became Chat GPT, and then Chat GPT just made it public for people. It's the same kind of thing. All this technology is already there.
Interesting. So now it's more consumer friendly is
Yes.
the way that you put it.
Yep.
Awesome,
So
man. Well, hey, appreciate you being here today. I think you shared a lot of valuable information, and make sure to go check out our podcast with Alex, the first one that we did, and I'll make sure to leave the link in the description down below, so that way you guys can find it. But if people that are out there that want to learn more about Vital Spark, that want to take their take their assessments and really get their personality profile, so they can start understanding more about themselves and start understanding, what it is that makes them who they are, but also want to actually plug into this tool as either a leader or an individual to be able to communicate with others better and actually adapt their communication, so that way they get the tips and tricks and the tools they need in order to get the desired results they want. What are some of the best places for them to be able to find you, to take the Vital Spark exam, and really sign up or get more information about this resource?
Instagram or LinkedIn, really easy to find me. Alex Aanderud. Name will be in the description because the name's hard, but Alex Aanderud is my handle. You can also access stuff through VitalSpark.ai. That's where you're able to take the assessment. I'm going to give you a code that you'll be able to put down below that will allow people to get their free report. So they'll get the full report for free, but also another code that people will be able to use if they want that coach and they want to try it for a month. It'll give them a free month of their AI coach. So we'll get both of those for your guys' listeners. Kobe, for those of you who are listening, Kobe's on the cutting edge. Every time I'm running a new program or running something new, he's always going, "What is the newest, the latest, and how can I be on front?" But he doesn't do it for himself and for his education. He does it because he wants to be able to have his team, his organization, and his people that much further ahead. So he's constantly looking for new innovative approaches to be able to bring them back, test them himself, and then get them integrated into the team so that his team can be successful. So Kobe, I love that about you. And because of that, I'd love to be able to support all of your listeners, anyone who's interested, by giving them just a free month to be able to play with the AI.
I really appreciate that, Alex, and thank you so much. Thank you for always sharing all the new stuff that you're building out as well, so that way that I do have the opportunity to test it and integrate it some way into our team, the best that I could as well. So appreciate that, Alex. And guys, make sure to check out the VitalSpark AI tool and also the VitalSpark exam or personal assessment as well, so that way you guys get really, I think, you mentioned one of the most in-depth personality profiles that is really out there in the marketplace. So guys, make sure to check that out and get the codes in the description down below. But Alex, man, before we let you go, is there any last tips or any last pieces of advice, either on adaptive leadership, utilizing AI, and the development of AI for our listeners that are out there today?
AI is going to replace us, but it's going to make us more efficient in the process. The smarter you get on how to utilize AI will allow you to augment everything that you do more quickly, more efficiently, and be able to get more done. And ultimately, it comes down from a leadership perspective, is your ability to adapt and communicate is going to determine your people's success. I hear all the time that a leader can't be responsible for people's success, that they need to take action themselves. And I go, but the leader creates the environment where that happens. So ultimately, the leader is responsible. And if you define yourself as a leader, you better take responsibility for the success that your people are getting or aren't getting, and what you need to do to get there. Because after all, I end most of my stuff with this. It goes, reality isn't fact. Reality isn't real. Reality is what you make it. So make it a great day. Thank you for having me on, and thank you for all the listeners who are engaged. Take care, guys.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Alex. Take care. See you on the next show.
Bye, guys.